welcome back. Today we are rolling up some sushi while diving into a centuries-old conspiracy that shakes the foundations of literary history. The Shakespeare hoax theory. Was he a fraud or was the truth just fishy? Was William Shakespeare really the genius behind those timeless plays, or was he the face of somebody else's brilliance? Some people even think he was an alien. Today I thought I would attempt to make some sushi while rolling through a theory that might make you rethink everything you thought you knew about the man, the myth, the legend, Willie Shakespeare. Sushi, 3 bites of seaweed for £50. Now that's what I call high society. Billy Shakes would have loved it. I personally love sushi. Many people think it's quite disgusting. Because they just think it's a bunch of raw fish and meat. I used to think that too until I tried it, and now I absolutely love it. Well, I mean, I don't love all of the raw fish. The only raw fish I really eat is smoked salmon. The rest of it, no. I usually go for like veggie options, which is probably what I'm gonna try and recreate today. Today I'm not necessarily going to be following a recipe. I've just sort of taken inspiration from stuff that I've eaten at restaurants and things that I've sort of found on the internet. So I'm just going to kind of wing it. What could possibly go wrong?
I shouldn't have said that. I should not have said that. I shouldn't have said that.
Before I get into it, before I get into the theories and Shakespeare and all of that stuff, if you did want to attempt to remake what I'm making today, or you just want to know what I'm using, or you just want to have a go yourself, here are the ingredients that I have used. But again, I'm not really using a recipe, I'm just kind of winging it. It's going to be on the screen now. Okay, so let's get things rolling, pardon the fun. Let's start from the beginning. Our boy Shakespeare, Sir Rhymes-a-Lot, if you will. He was born in Stratford-upon-Avon in a small market town in England. And as everybody knows, he had an insane talent for writing. Shakespeare was super prolific and he wasn't afraid to get creative with storytelling. His plays tackled big themes: love, power, jealousy, ambition, and they really seemed to connect with audiences at the time. He was also recognised early on for his skill with language and emotion, and he also acted in the plays as well, which I don't think a lot of people actually know. He wasn't just behind the scenes, he was actually on stage making a name for himself. Here's the part that a lot of people don't seem to know about William Shakespeare. He didn't just write and act the plays, he was actually a shareholder in a theatre company. He was part of a group called Lord Chamberlain's Men, and in 1599 they decided to build their own theatre called the Globe. Shakespeare invested in it, which made him a co-owner, and that meant that he earned a lot of money, not just from writing and acting in the plays, but also from ticket sales. It was a smart business move on Shakespeare's part, which gave him more creative control and boosted his income. He also published popular poems, as we know, like Venus and Adonis, which were big hits at the time and helped build his reputation even more. I've also just realised I've done this wrong. I forgot my seaweed. So we're just gonna pretend that didn't happen. Fuck. I thought this would be quite, oh my lord. Fuck's sake. I was only joking when I said what could possibly go wrong. Such a dumbass. Okay, seaweed. Or nori, I think they call it. Right, attempt two. So with all of that success of owning the theatre, writing and acting in plays, having brilliant poems that are famous even today, why do some people believe that he was a fraud? Probably because there are very few records of Shakespeare's private life that can be found. This has stimulated a lot of speculation about things like his physical appearance, his sexuality, his religious beliefs, his upbringing, and so on. Although he's considered one of the greatest writers in the English language, we don't actually seem to know an awful lot about who he really was. And here's the thing, during Shakespeare's lifetime, he was really well known, he was really respected, but centuries later, people found themselves questioning how someone from such a modest background, no fancy education, no noble family, no travel records or anything like that, how could he have written such brilliant stuff if he didn't really seem to have the opportunities to gain the knowledge that he was writing about? That led to all kinds of conspiracy theories about whether he really wrote the plays. So what do we really know about our guy Will for sure? Let's go through it. Although there are very few documented records regarding Will, we actually do know some basic facts about his early life, and that's how people can speculate with reasonable confidence that he didn't have a fancy education or a privileged upbringing. So here's what we do know. He was born in 1564 in Stratford-upon-Avon, a small market town in England. His father, John Shakespeare, was a local glove maker, and he also held some local government roles as well. So the family was middle class, but they weren't considered like elite or high society. They were just sort of like in the middle. Experts and scholars that study Shakespeare believe that he likely attended the local grammar school known as King's New School, where he would have studied Latin, classical literature and other things. It was a solid education for the time, but it's not the kind of elite university training that wealthy or noble families could afford. Although there is no documented evidence that he attended school for certain, some people think he likely did because at the time, education wasn't mandatory, but grammar schools were free for boys, especially the sons of local officials like Shakespeare's dad. His dad also held several important positions in Stratford, including bailiff, which was basically like the town's mayor. That would have made Will legible and probably even expected to attend this school, and the school was also a short walk from his house. There's also no record of Will attending university, which is something you'd expect if he had a high status background about, it's kind of like the things that he would write about. Although they believe he attended grammar school, they don't believe that he attended university because there are no records of him at Oxford or Cambridge. The university records still exist today, and Will's name ain't on them. Either that or he was bunking off writing poems and that. But Oxford and Cambridge were the two main universities at the time. The fact his name isn't on the records, paired with his early marriage to Anne Hathaway at 18, along with the birth of their children shortly after, suggests he most likely stayed in Stratford rather than pursuing a higher education. After his early years in Stratford, the historical record seems to go a little bit quiet until the early 1590s when he shows up in London's theatre scene. And that's kind of all we really know about his personal life. 5 things, I think, and even most of them are pretty much just experts making guesses based on the information that they do have. I have no idea how much rice I'm supposed to put on. I'm just gonna wing it. I always wing it. Is this supposed to touch the corners? Okay, fine. I use sushi. I really love eating cucumber makis, so I'm gonna try and recreate. That's what I'm gonna try and recreate. That's gonna be really big. And they're always really thin. I'm supposed to cut that in half, do you think?
You're pissing around with something that's not working.
Yes, chef.
Have that fucking clicked?
Yes, chef.
I don't know. Maybe I should have looked this up.
What are we waiting on?
eyes. We're gonna go with it.
No! No!
This is gonna be a disaster, innit? Let's be real. Why can't I figure this out?
What are you?
An idiot sandwich.
Idiot sandwich what?
An idiot sandwich, Chef Ramsay.
Alright, first attempt's not the best.
When you roll it looking like a pair of fucking knickers.
This isn't going to be aesthetically pleasing, but it's going to be something. It's like a pancake, the first one you always toss away. So on paper at least, Shakespeare was sort of considered a nobody. No high standard of formal education, but somehow he was able to gain enough information to write plays packed with legal knowledge, political insight and cultural depth, which wouldn't have been easy to obtain at the time if he wasn't in the right social circles or in the right line of work. So due to that, some people think it's a little bit weird given his background, and some people think that he didn't do any of his own work at all. And here's the kicker. Apparently, there is no evidence of Shakespeare's handwriting anywhere. There are no signed manuscripts, there are no personal diaries. They literally don't have any record, or there's just no record that can be found anywhere of his own handwriting. Literally nothing. And I know what you're thinking, because I thought the same thing. If there are no records of his handwriting, how did he produce all of his work? Well, I looked it up. It was probably a combination of dictation and collaboration with actors and scribes who probably wrote them down before him, you know, if it was even him. Which is why no examples of his handwriting have survived, apparently. So could this whole Shakespeare thing be a cover-up? Let's find out. So to kick off the theories, first of all, let's meet our potential suspects, the people who could have been the real author behind Shakespeare's name.
Welcome to The Real Slim Shakespeare! First up, come on down, we have Sir Francis Bacon. He loves long walks through the halls of academia and debating the nature of knowledge. When he's not busy writing about science and philosophy, you'll find him making groundbreaking discoveries. He's a philosopher, a statesman, and someone whose intellect could easily match the complexity of the plays. I mean, let's be real, who wouldn't want a man with a hat like that to write your scripts? Could he have written Hamlet? Time for our second suspect, with a sharp wit and flair for drama. He's known for his love of theatre and his passion for literature. He's the man behind some of the greatest works in history. Or is he? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the mysterious and ever so dashing Edward de Vere, the Earl of Oxford. I mean, with a name like that, how could you not? With his aristocratic background and a life full of experience, many think he's the perfect fit to have penned those plays. Could he have been hiding behind Shakespeare's mask? And lastly, we have a man who loves challenging authority and living life on the edge. I mean, just look at that hair. If that doesn't say challenging authority and living life on the edge, I don't know what does. With a reputation as a daring poet and a fearless thinker, we have Christopher Marlowe. Oh, wait, actually, no, change the music. Yeah, there we go, okay. He was a super talented playwright and a poet, but he mysteriously died young in 1593 under some pretty strange circumstances.
Right, okay, I've just googled how to roll sushi, so I think I'm an expert now. Let's give it another go. First of all, I need to cut this in half. Can I just rip it? Yeah, you can rip it. Basically. So I think I'm an expert now. Let's get scissors. Okay. Let's do this. Okay, so those were our potential suspects. So let's take a closer look at each one of them, shall we? Let's start off with Sir Francis Bacon. I know, I laughed at that as well. An actual Renaissance man. He was a philosopher, a statesman, and a pretty big deal in the intellectual world. Some people think that he could have been behind Shakespeare's plays because his writings show a similar level of deep legal and political insight. Francis also had the knack of working with complex ideas, just like Shakespeare's plays. Plus, he also had the kind of connections and education that Shakespeare apparently did not. Some people actually think that Francis might have wanted to stay anonymous, so he used Shakespeare's name as a front. But why? Well, some people think it may have been for political reasons, because writing something like Hamlet, for example, back then, could have got you in serious trouble at the time. It questioned political power, it explored themes of revenge and corruption, and challenged social and religious norms of Elizabethan England. And although that's not considered unusual by today's standards, with the media and free speech and the internet and everything else that we are able to voice our opinions freely on, back then that was a massive no-no. Francis was pretty well connected in high circles, so maybe he wanted to play it safe by keeping his identity hidden while still flexing his genius. Then we have suspect number 2, Edward de Vere, Earl of Oxford. This guy's got a whole fan club of people who believe he was the real Shakespeare. He came from a noble family, he had a strong education, and he lived a life full of travel and high society, which are just like a lot of the themes in Shakespeare's plays. Shakespeare's plays often had themes of political power, upper class, and court life, which seemed to sort of line up with Ed's own experiences. And also the timing kind of works out. The plays started to appear right around the time that Ed was at the height of his career, but he had too much to lose by publicly claiming authorship. So could Ed have written all of those plays under Shakespeare's name to keep himself low-key? There's a lot of evidence pointing to Ed's personal life aligning with Shakespeare's work, and some people believe that Ed's own tragic experiences with love and loss show up in plays just like Romeo and Juliet and The Taming of the Shrew. I'm looking at my ingredients and I definitely should have made more rice. Alright, cucumber maki attempt 2. And then you're supposed to like squeeze it. That's what they did, they squeezed. Oh no! I didn't use enough seed.
I'm gonna go fucking ballistic. Get a grip!
Shit. I feel like I can bodge it. No. Apart from you, because you're watching this. Sort of like do a gaffer tape job. There you go. And then just like squeeze it all together. I mean, it looks better than, you know, we're getting there.
What is that?
Right, now I want to try and make like a salmon nori thing. You just got to kind of like cube up the rice, and I think you just stick the salmon on top. You just got to sort of. Yes, I do use the mat, but then there's no seaweed to protect the mat. So I'll sort of keep it. I'm going to use my hands. No, that's a bad idea, that was a bad idea. Should have worn gloves. You like squeeze. This is the worst. Jesus Christ. And suspect 3, Christopher Marlowe, another playwright who lived during the same time as Shakespeare. He's best known for his bold dramatic works like Dr. Faustus, which deal with big themes like ambition and damnation. Marlowe was kind of a rock star back in his day, super talented, a bit of a rebel, and known for being pretty daring both in his writing and his personal life. But here's where it gets a little bit weird. Christopher apparently died in quite a mysterious death. He died in 1593 at the age of 29, but there's a theory that his death was faked. Some people think that he was involved in secret political stuff and had to disappear to avoid getting into serious trouble. So could Christopher really have staged his death and kept writing under Shakespeare's name? Some scholars believe that his writing style show up in Shakespeare's later works. So maybe Marlowe was the one actually pulling the strings behind the curtain the whole time, and maybe Shakespeare was just helping him out by letting him use his name and being a front for the whole thing. There is, however, a whole load of people who defend Shakespeare. They say that genius isn't always logical, it's more complex, and maybe he was just one of those rare talents who didn't need a fancy education or high society background to create worlds from his imagination. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you don't really need to be fancy to understand fancy things. I'm sure there's an easier way to do this, but I don't have the skills, let's be real. It ain't gonna look pretty, but I don't even know if it's gonna be tasty. Okay, I think I'm just gonna make 2 of them. Let's try another roll. I've got so much ingredients, I'm not even gonna use half of it. I think my avocado is going brown. I want to try one of those, like, rolly ones when they're like a bouquet, you know? And they're sort of like, bouquet. We've covered the theory that someone else might be behind Shakespeare's iconic works, but what if I told you there was a whole other layer of mystery? The theory that someone else may have written them has led to speculation about coded messages and secret clues planted within the writing. Some scholars and conspiracy theorists believe there are hidden messages and codes scattered throughout his plays and sonnets. From cryptic dedications to secret ciphers, there's a possibility that some of Shakespeare's stuff may have contained hidden truths about the authorship. Let's have a look at a few examples. The dedication in Shakespeare's sonnets have had scholars scratching their heads for absolutely centuries, mostly because of its mysterious wording. It says, "To the only begetter of these ensuing sonnets, Mr. W.H. all hail." But who exactly Mr. W.H. is has been a hot topic of debate. Some think it's a reference to a real person, maybe a patron or a lover, while others believe it's a clue pointing to the true author behind the works. There are even theories that the phrase itself hides a particular code, and cracking it could even tell us more about who really wrote the sonnets. The whole mystery of Mr. W.H. has sparked endless conspiracy theories, as you can imagine. Names like William Herbert or Oh, I can never say this name. There's always names that I can't say. Henry Wriothesley. I'm gonna have to look it out. I can't. I'm gonna put it on the screen. There you go. You can have a look. Both of these guys were around at the same time as Shakespeare, and they were prominent figures who supported writers and playwrights. Some people have suggested them as being the potential real authors. The first folio is the first collected edition of Shakespeare's plays, published in 1623, 7 years after his death. It contains 36 of his plays, 18 of which have never actually been published in any form before. It was compiled by two of Shakespeare's fellow actors, John Hemingen.
Hey pal, you just blowing from Stupid Town?
Heminges. That's right, I think that's right. And Henry Condell, who wanted to preserve his works for posterity. So this folio has been under the microscope for possible hidden messages. While it's crucial for preserving a lot of Shakespeare's plays, some people think subtle symbols and clues that might tie into the whole authorship mystery. One of the most talked about features is the portrait of Shakespeare on the title page. At first glance, it might look like a simple portrait. A lot of people think it has a bit of a deeper meaning, and some people think it has hidden clues and symbols. For example, they point to the odd proportion of Shakespeare's doublet, that fancy jacket thing that he's wearing, as a potential clue. Maybe possibly hinting that another person was the real author, as in it didn't really fit him. Or maybe they were just at least involved. Over the years, the portrait itself has had a lot of interpretations, people coming up with new ideas about what they think it means, if it even means anything at all. Maybe it was just badly drawn. But some people think it hides a message about who the author really was, because, as we know, a lot of people think that Shakespeare didn't do any of his own work. So, as you know, we discussed Francis Bacon as being a potential suspect for who actually wrote plays and things. There's this idea that he used secret codes called ciphers in the text to give a nod that he may be the real author. One of the main ideas behind this theory is the use of a special cipher that Francis is said to have used to hide his real name in the plays. Supporters of this theory claim that certain letters or combinations of the letters in the text contain hidden messages pointing straight to Francis. Although many scholars have apparently debunked this idea, they've said that it just doesn't add up, it's just not real, it's just not a thing. A lot of the theorists believe that he still has a loyal following, with people arguing that it does actually prove that Francis was the real genius behind Shakespeare's works. This is so much harder than it looks. Probably not, it's probably just me making a mess. These are looking how they're supposed to look. Another angle in the authorship. Oh, a cucumber. Another angle in the authorship debate involves numbers. Ew, maths, I know. But stay with me. Some people believe that recurring numbers or number patterns in Shakespeare's works hint to a hidden message or a code pointing to the real author. For example, the 14, which is also the number of lines in a sonnet, gets special attention, as do other numbers like 7, which some tie to the Earl of Oxford, who say that the numbers point to his connection with the numbers through his life and works. I tried to find out more about the number 7 and why this really ties in, but I couldn't really find anything specific, so I don't really know. I think it's a little bit weak, I don't know. While these number patterns are cool to look at, most experts don't think that they were intentionally placed in the works. but still, for those who do believe, these patterns might be a sneaky way to reveal who the true author is without anyone noticing. Scholars and historians have long been divided over the Shakespeare authorship question, with each having compelling arguments on both sides. On one hand, traditionalists, often referred to as Stratfordians, I think I've said that right, argue that the evidence supporting Shakespeare is as strong as it gets for the time. James Shapiro, author of Contested Will, who wrote Shakespeare, explains that historical records and title pages of the published plays and contemporary references are absolutely enough to establish Shakespeare as the true author. But then we have anti-Stratfordians who challenge this narrative. Diana Price, the author of Shakespeare's Unorthodox Biography, points out the lack of personal documentation connecting Shakespeare to his works, like manuscripts, diaries, or letters. She argues that this gap in evidence leaves room for doubt. But here's where it gets kind of interesting. It's not just scholars and experts and historians getting in on the authorship debate. Computer scientists have stepped in as well, using software to analyse writing styles like Little Detectives. One study looked at Shakespeare's plays and compared them to the writings of Henry Neville. Henry was a well-connected guy from the Elizabethan court. The results? We found some pretty strong similarities in how Shakespeare and Henry wrote, enough for them to think that Neville might have been the real author behind the curtain. It's not solid proof, but it does add another layer of mystery to the whole conspiracy theory. Honestly, it's kind of wild that we're still using new tools and technology to dig into whether Shakespeare, you know, the whole Shakespeare puzzle. I've literally used all of my rice, so yeah, it is what it is. The question is, why would anybody need a frontman like William Shakespeare? What's the point of hiding behind him? Well, let's flip the table on this mystery and explore possible motivations. First, we need to consider the possible social and political climate. Elizabethan England. During this era, certain individuals, particularly nobles like our guy Edward de Vere, for example, I have faced ridicule or even a scandal for dabbling in the world of theatre. Playwriting wasn't exactly a prestigious career back then, so using Shakespeare as a front allowed these upper class men to share their brilliance without tarnishing their reputation. I'm gonna have to cut you to shape because I ain't got enough. Actually, no, it'll be fine. I don't think I need to. I'm just gonna wing it. It's gonna be cool. And then we have censorship, which was an ever-present threat in Elizabethan England times. In this era, plays and shows that challenged controversial topics like politics or religion were massively scrutinised. By attributing the works to Shakespeare, the true authors could keep their identities safe while challenging social norms from behind the curtain. I've run out of rice. Just gonna add in some mayo. I haven't used any of this yet. I've actually never tried this. I would never normally get this when getting sushi at a restaurant, but I just thought I'd give it a go. Here's another angle for you. Shakespeare was an actor and part owner of the Globe Theatre. He had access to public venues and audiences. If the true authors were outside the theatre world, they might have needed Shakespeare to get their works staged and published. He was quite literally the gateway to the stage. And it doesn't stop there. A lot of experts and oh my god, I'm literally just wrapping this up like a tortilla. It's gonna be fun. Squeeze. Some theorists have suggested that Shakespeare's name was used as a collective pseudonym for multiple playwrights collaborating on these works, which would explain the diversity of the themes and knowledge in the plays. Law, politics, foreign cultures, subjects that might be the result of a group effort rather than one man's genius, which also would explain the knowledge not really matching Shakespeare's background. So we've explored the possibility that Shakespeare wasn't the author. Oh my god, I rolled it into the thing. We've explored the possibility that Shakespeare wasn't the real author of his famous works, but here's another twist. What if Shakespeare did write the plays, but he didn't write them alone? Okay, so picture this, right? Busy Elizabethan theatre, buzzing with creativity, Shakespeare with his raw talent and imagination could have partnered with anonymous playwrights, co-writers, or even ghostwriters so they could craft masterpieces that we know today. There's a lot of evidence suggesting that collaboration wasn't uncommon in Elizabethan theatre. Playwrights often apparently borrowed ideas and shared drafts and even merged scripts to meet deadlines or tailor plays to popular demand at the time. So this could be another argument regarding the sophisticated knowledge embedded in Shakespeare's work, knowledge that he may have lacked on his own. I mean, I know what it looks like, but I ain't gonna say what it looks like. I know that you are thinking what it looks like. I think we're all on the same page about what it looks like. Alright, I've used up all of my rice. I effectively just have a salad left. I wouldn't call it a success for looks, but it is, well, I haven't tasted it yet. It is what it is. What if the truth isn't about a single name, but a collective effort? What if the plays of William Shakespeare might represent a patchwork of creativity woven together by multiple minds? And then there's the wildest theory of them all. Ready? Aliens. Now, I know, but it wouldn't be a conspiracy theory video without aliens of some sort. But yeah, that's right. Some people actually believe that aliens are behind Shakespeare's work. And yeah, some people have actually suggested it. Some people think that Shakespeare's work was so ahead of its time that he might have had a little help from, well, visitors from another planet. It's completely out there with no real evidence, in my opinion. It pops up every now and again on forums and sort of sci-fi things, so I just thought I would include it. The main argument for the alien theory comes down to how advanced and layered Shakespeare's writing is. His deep understanding of human psychology, politics, and even things like astronomy. Pretty much the same argument for all of the other theories that we've spoken about, but somehow we've landed on aliens. Some people point to his wide-ranging vocabulary, complex characters, and timeless themes as being too sophisticated for somebody from the 16th century with a modest education and a very simple background. And as we've discussed, some people even claim there are hidden messages and codes in the writing, in his texts, which they believe are from our extraterrestrial friends. You know, classic conspiracy stuff. Of course, I don't think any of this holds up under scrutiny. I think it just makes for a really fun what if. What if he was an alien? You know? Then again, we always make fun of people, conspiracy theorists in the past, and how much stuff have they been right about. That whole time that people were like, aliens are real, and I was like, no, you're not, you freak. And it turns out the government have recently just been like, yeah, they are. Yeah, you're us. Sushi doesn't need to cook because it's, well, raw. Here comes the psychology segment, because apparently facts aren't enough. We need to psychoanalyze everyone now. Well, someone's got to bring some depth to this channel, and it's not going to be you. Alright, Freud, hit us with your theories, enlighten us. Gladly. Let's talk about why some people can't accept that Shakespeare was, well, Shakespeare. Okay, here's the thing. Humans are wired with something called representativeness heuristic. Basically, we match people to stereotypes in our heads. When we think great playwright and intellectual, we imagine someone highly educated, well-travelled, deeply embedded in absolute high society, not the son of a glove maker from Stratford-upon-Avon. So when Shakespeare doesn't really fit that mental mould, some people's brains go, something must be off here. This then creates something called cognitive dissonance, which, to put it simply, is a mental discomfort when two ideas clash or when our actions don't really line up with what we believe. Some people resolve it by deciding that Shakespeare couldn't have written the plays, so instead they search for someone who does fit the profile. Aristocrat, a court insider, a university educated thinker, or whatever else they decide, maybe even an alien. In this way, their belief in an alternative author isn't just about the facts, it's about resolving an internal narrative that feels more logical to them and probably emotionally satisfying. There's also a psychological attraction to hidden knowledge. Believing that you've uncovered a secret truth that the world has completely missed feeds into what's called the need for uniqueness, a desire to feel like you're seeing the bigger picture while others are still in the dark. It makes you sort of feel like special or smart, almost as if you have inside knowledge that others can't see, which, you wouldn't want that. But also here's the flip side. Psychologically speaking, our brains love an underdog story. The idea that someone considered to have no real formal credentials could rise up and redefine literature as we know it is deeply compelling to many people, myself included. It supports the belief that genius can come from anywhere, not just elite institutions, and that's the kind of idea that people defend passionately. If you're looking at it from this angle, I suppose the disbelief in Shakespeare's authorship can feel a little bit snobbish to some people. Like saying only the upper class are capable of creativity and depth. Also, defenders of the traditional view might also argue that intelligence and imagination aren't limited by birth or education. And doubting Shakespeare just because of where he came from probably says more about your own biases than about him. What's quite interesting is that people can come from these Shakespeare theories from totally different psychological angles. On one hand, there's this deep pull towards hidden knowledge, the idea that the real truth has been buried or covered up and you've managed to uncover it. It taps into the need for uniqueness, the feeling of being the one who sees through the illusion while everyone else just accepts the surface story. But then on the other side, as we said, there's the completely different kind of appeal, the underdog story. A lot of people love the idea that Shakespeare is just this guy from a small town, no fancy education, could outshine the elites and the upper class and change the literary world forever. The version that inspires people, it says brilliance doesn't need permission or a pedigree. You're just a regular guy, you can change the world with just your words and imagination. And really that just shows how differently people are wired. What one person sees as a cover-up, another sees as proof of something remarkable. Either you're trying to resolve the discomfort of a story that doesn't match your mental template, or you're defending the idea of greatness can come from unexpected places. The authorship question taps into our beliefs about identity, class, intelligence, and even what it means to be a writer. Kind of what makes it so much more than just a literary mystery. It's a reflection of how we make sense of genius and who we believe is allowed to claim it. And mostly it kind of just shows how far people are willing to go to explain Shakespeare's genius when maybe he was just kind of really good at what he did. He didn't need a fancy education. Maybe he wasn't an alien. Maybe he was just a guy with a brain and an imagination that changed the way that we do things. Back to me in the kitchen.
It's raw. That's raw.
Stone cold and it's raw.
That's fucking raw. And you're sending me raw fish, but it's fucking cold. It's fucking raw. It's raw, man. Salmon's raw in the middle. Raw. The fish is raw. It's fucking raw. They look raw, gent. It's fucking raw, yeah? It's raw.
I stole some chopsticks from the supermarket, from the sushi counter. They were free, so stole is a strong word. I'm not very good at using chopsticks either. Some soy sauce, because it's a must with sushi. I think it tastes okay. I'm not sure if I cooked the rice enough. That tastes good, to be fair. That tastes like you sushi. Okay, onto these ones. The mayonnaise and stuff like that in them. It's actually really nice. Okay. I'm not going to be able to dip, so I'm just going to pour out my soy sauce on that. I don't think I can even lift this up the chopsticks, it's not going to stick. That was a bit of a fail, but the rest of it is actually nice, if I do say so myself. Not appealing visually to look at, but it's still nice. I don't know if maybe I should have cooked the rice a little bit more though, which probably means I'm going to get unwell from eating what I've got, but hopefully not. But yeah, they're nice. I like that. So what do you believe? Was Shakespeare a literary genius from Stratford, a cover for a court insider, or a ghostwriter resurrected from beyond the grave? We've sliced through some theories and rolled in some psychology and maybe even served up a little existential crisis with that sushi. At the end of the day, the mystery isn't just about the authorship, it's about why we're so drawn to these questions in the first place. Maybe we crave the drama, maybe we just love flipping the script. Either way, thank you for sticking around and getting a little bit weird with me. If you've got thoughts or theories, or you just want to tell me that I've completely lost it, drop a comment, subscribe. Still cringe. Don't think that'll ever not be cringe to say. But yeah, come back for the next Twisted Tale, please. So yeah, see you next time. Bye. I like telling stories, I like cooking, I like editing. Oh, I'm just so not natural.